missile shield sites in Poland, Czech Republic with its intercontinental ballistic missiles. Washington says the shield is for protecting the U.S. from missile threats, but Moscow regards it a threat to its security and has repeatedly warned the U.S. against it. A grenade attack on a mosque in northern Pakistan has killed at least 15 people. The attack took place in the district of Dir near the border with Afghanistan. At least 40 others were injured in that attack. Zimbabwe's political rivals say a power-sharing deal is imminent. President Robert Mugabe hopes the talks will be finished by Wednesday. He says there are only a few areas of disagreement left. Opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai says a deal could be reached very soon. Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad stresses the United Nations' role in settling regional and international disputes. In a meeting with the UN Special Envoy to Iraq, who said most problems in Iraq could be solved if the occupiers leave the country based on a timetable. Israeli troops have shot dead a Palestinian during a raid in the West Bank city of Nablus. The incident came after Israeli troops clashed with Palestinian stone throwers. Over 500 people have been killed since the relaunch of Israeli-Palestinian peace talks last November. A landslide in China's northern Shanxi province has killed 128 people. The landslide was caused by a mine collapse and trapped hundreds of people under debris. Rescuers are still searching for survivors. Officials have blamed reckless mining for the landslide. Flash floods killed at least 19 people in southwestern Iran. Heavy rains which caused the disaster injured 4 people. The waters destroyed over 50 homes and 300 hectares of farmland and left hundreds of rural families homeless.
We're back with Fine Print, discussing the latest in a series of Cold War tit for tat between U.S. and Russia. For that, we're joined from Austin, Texas by Alex Jones, investigative journalist, documentary filmmaker, owner of Infowars.com. From New York, we're joined by Gregory Vinikoff, political analyst, TV commentator, radio host. By the phone, we're joined from New York by Ian Williams, author and political analyst, senior analyst with foreign policy and focus, and columnist with The Guardian Online. Ian, back to the issue of the deal, the nuclear deal, the U.S. pulling out, simply saying it's not the right environment for it, the winners and losers of this. But before you shoot, let's go to a comment coming from Russian Foreign Ministry, cited by Reuters. The agreement on peaceful nuclear energy was equally beneficial to Russia and the United States, so the American nuclear sector will suffer no less than the Russian one from its withdrawal, the Russian Foreign Ministry. And if you'd like to put this in the broader picture of the winners and losers on the whole in this game, we'll be glad to hear.
Well, all of us are losing from this. I mean, the basic fault here was American diplomacy after the fall of the Soviet Union treated Russia as a defeated power. And the first Russian regime under Yeltsin practically went along with it and produced, with the shock therapy, destroyed the Russian economy. There was no serious thought given to how the Soviet Union was to be peacefully sort of taken apart and how it was to maintain cooperation. It caused chaos and poverty. And of course, a basic point of Russian politics now is that now that they've got the oil money, they feel they can stand up and flex their muscles. It's very popular. They remember past glories. The U.S. never learned from that. The U.S. has been totally inept in its diplomacy. And there are some people in the U.S. who still think that, the Russians are basically communists and they're still fighting them. So the nuclear deal was very unpopular with some people in the hard conservative right of American politics. And I think it's a sort of nuanced signal. You have the Cheney mob who are pretty much old-style anti-communists, and also because they're colorblind, they can't tell the difference between red and green. They think Islamists are also communists. Condoleezza Rice is a bit more pragmatic about this, and I think it's quite true. that this deal hasn't been ripped up, it's been shelved. It's an attempt to send a signal. But in the end, it was a very good deal, and it provided benefits to both parties, and I think that if saner councils prevail in the next few months, it can be resurrected and will be. I mean, it was there to address a very serious problem on reprocessing, and both sides had something to bring to the table with it. But the bluster and counter-bluster, I mean, it takes a lot to make this White House look sane, but there is no one from the Pentagon threatening to nuke parts of Russia at the moment, but we have Russian generals doing that. And, you know, it looks great if by sending a warship to Venezuela and sending planes there, they are military totally ineffective. It's sort of cocking a snook, and it might make them feel good, but it doesn't do anything diplomatically at all. The issue is that there are serious issues to be resolved, and one of the things which I think Russia has shown really serious bad faith, as Sarkozy has discovered today, is that 200 European Union monitors who are supposed to go in, they're not going to be allowed into the enclaves, where there is serious evidence that whatever happened before, there's been continuous ethnic cleansing of ethnic Georgians from Ossetia. There already had been from Abkhazia beforehand.
All right.
Now, this is a very complex situation with bad people on both sides, and, you know, to be a victim, you don't have to be a saint.
All right. Now, speaking of Sarkozy, let's go to abcnews.com. Sarkozy brokers Russian withdrawal agreement. Russia has agreed to remove its military forces from Georgia proper within a month under a new European Union agreement brokered by French President Nicolas Sarkozy. Mr. Sarkozy, whose country holds the rotating EU presidency, led the EU delegation to Moscow to meet with Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. After 3 hours of talks, Mr. Medvedev said he would withdraw his troops from Georgia, but not from its two breakaway provinces. He said this would be done by the second week of October, but that it would be conditional on the deployment of 200 EU monitors to the region. There was also agreement that Russia would move its checkpoint outside Georgian port city of Poti within a week. Mr. Medvedev defended Russia's controversial decision to recognize the independence of South Ossetia and Abkhazia, saying that that move was irrevocable. Alex Jones, I'd like to have your take here on Sarkozy's mediation, EU and U.S. Earlier, we had Ian simply saying the EU is united with the U.S. hawks against Russia, and you took an issue with that.
Okay. I mean, I'm hearing some amazing things here by the last guy, and let me just cover that, and it answers the question. The Pentagon hawks and NATO in the last year, and you can go to the policy numbers, changed the policy to a preemptive nuclear strike on Russian forces and said this is meant to be a provocation. And so now they've moved in missile defense, which is only good for a sneak attack, and then claimed that it was to stop Iran. I mean, how ridiculous. And now the Pentagon admits it's really for Russia, so that if Russia is hit by a sneak attack, a nuclear attack or other attack, they can't respond back with their Topol-M, ICBMs, MIRV-tip missiles. And so you have these missile systems being moved into Ukraine, Poland, other places, regular military training, hardware, incredibly provocative. Imagine if Russian troops were massing on the Mexico border with Texas or California. And then meanwhile, back in July it was announced, I saw the Russian Foreign Ministry say this, I didn't believe them, I went and checked it. Back in July they announced these naval maneuvers. So the media is now saying, oh, the Peter the Great missile cruiser, coming in here is a provocative move. Well, it is a provocative move, but from previous escalation with NATO and the United States moving weapon systems in. And so you've got Sarkozy, I mean, thank God that Italy and others are saying this is ridiculous, we're partners with Russia, but you've got Sarkozy trying to act like he's being diplomatic and, claiming he's meeting with the Russians under good faith, but it's more escalation. I like what we've seen from Merkel there in Germany, saying that this needs to be de-escalated. But to then say, oh, Russia won't pull out of South Ossetia and Abkhazia because they've massacred all these people, and no doubt there's probably been some abuses there. I mean, we saw ethnic cleansing and extermination by the Georgians in South Ossetia, but that's not the reason they're not pulling out, because they want to cover up massacres. They're there because the globalist New World Order puppet there in Georgia, their president, has said he plans to try to retake South Ossetia. And regardless of what anybody says, whatever provocations they make up. We know there was some skirmishes and police shooting at each other in the months before. Georgia turned the water off to South Ossetia and other areas, and then on top of that launched the sneak attack in the early morning hours of 8/88, and that's incontrovertible. That can't be debated. They initiated first blood, the major response, and that's what we don't need. The military-industrial complex needs more wars. They need to gin up support so they can attack Iran. This is part of a bigger picture trying to ring Central Asia and start World War III.
Now, let's go to Gregory Vinikov. Gregory, before we move on with the missile shield, so on and so forth, a lot of factors involved here. Let's take a look at Sarkozy's effort along with Barroso, and we had also EU Foreign Policy Chief Xavier Solana alongside with